Hi, Charlie. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm really good. It's so nice to be here. I've been looking forward to it so much. I've been telling everyone that I can about this podcast because I've watched some of your previous videos and they are top. I love them.
Thanks a lot for that. I appreciate that. It's an honour to have you on because I think The Traitors is one of the best programmes that's been on the telly in years. So it's great to speak to somebody who's been on it.
Thank you. Yeah, I can give you some tips if you ever want to go on. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll start off talking about the new series that started last week. Have you been enjoying it?
I've not stopped watching it. Yeah, I've been looking on the internet, looking at videos. I must have rewatched the episodes 3 times. Because usually, naturally, when you watch any episodes of the Traitors, especially the last couple of episodes, you get so heightened in the emotion that you almost miss half of it. So I have to rewatch the episodes. I can't get enough of it. I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, I think the last episode is when it started to get a bit more dramatic with the arguing and stuff. I think it started to pick up now.
And the round table again. I mean, we'll start from the beginning, we'll go through it. But I mean, straight from the off, on the first episode, on the train going in, they didn't even get to the castle before Claudia had intervened and got on the speaker. I'm so glad that didn't happen on my season because there's no way. There's no way we would have got off that train.
Who do you think would have got off if they had to from your series?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know. I want to say the quieter ones, but I think actually it's not necessarily about the quieter ones. It's about the ones that are ready to take a gamble. So I think the big confident players, actually, I think possibly, Paul, Harry, I think that they would, Johnny, because I think Johnny was really good at taking risks and was really confident. I think it's so difficult on the first episode and talking from somebody that has entered a reality show like that. Your mind is going so much on overdrive of who's that person? Would I trust that person? Am I going to be friends with that person? That when you have a challenge like that, in our season, it was the lineup outside the castle. That's what we had. And your mind's going overdrive because there's no way that you're going to be able to tell, right? If you get off the train, then, you're seen as a good team player. It's an absolute crazy situation. But I just don't think on the first episode, I would be willing to take a gamble like that.
No, definitely not. I went back and watched your series. I think it's the best series out of the first two and so far. But when did the game start for you then? When you were on the train or in that line or?
Straight from the off, yeah. When we were on the train, there's right at the start that we're in the carriages going to the castle, and everyone's kind of sizing each other up, which is silly, really, Ethan. So the fact that no one's a traitor at that point. So you're like, yeah, you've got the minerals to be a traitor, and then you think, actually, I could be a traitor at this point. So I've got the mineral. Could I lie to that person? So yeah, thank you for saying that our season was really good. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it.
What made you apply for the show?
So I watched the first season. Now I watched it a little bit later, so I didn't watch it live. I watched it on BBC iPlayer. I just come across it. I love a good murder mystery, and I was intrigued by it. I also like reality TV, so I was like, yeah. I started to watch it, and honestly, I was gripped. I must have gone to bed about 5 o'clock in the morning. The way that the episodes are designed, right, is that you can never finish it and go, yeah, I'll watch the next one tomorrow. You just can't get away. And it got to the point and I was like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, I pulled like pretty much an all-nighter just watching it. And I was so gripped, and I'm trying to tell people around me about this series, and it wasn't as well known as it is now, so not many people have watched the Traitors. I tried to post about it, and the more I thought about it, I probably got to about episode 10, and I was like, I can do this. I love everything about it. When I was a kid, I used to watch Poirot and all the murder mysteries, and I used to sit down with a little notepad and a pen and take notes on everything that was happening in the episodes. So and I'm really good with body language. Like, I'm always people watching, constantly analyzing, and I'm neurodiverse. I'm ADHD, so I like overthink and run through conversations so many times anyway in my normal day-to-day life. And I think that is such I mean, it can be a little bit of a bad thing when you're overthinking and you get tired. But yeah, that was a long answer, but that's why I did what I did, you know?
Well, I'm sure lots of people will have applied for it. What makes them choose the 22 people? Like, what's the process?
It was really good actually because this is what's great about the Traitors, right? Is because it's the same structure of the game. You have the faithfuls that doesn't change on different seasons, and that can sometimes get a bit tiring, I think, because if you're watching the same thing, we know other game shows where that's the same structure and it can get a little bit boring. But everything about the Traitors is the casting. It is, and the great thing is that you don't have this all the same of one person. So you might have a quieter person, you might have an observer, you might have a more confident person, and having that group of people and have a few characters and people you think, yeah, they're definitely going to clash. So that's great TV, right? If we all had a table of people that just didn't say anything, then that wouldn't be good. So I think that's the key, really. And the process is about finding those individuals and that are compatible with each other. So it's not just about what would make great TV. It's about who would rub that person up the wrong way, who would get on great with that person.
When did you find out that you'd been accepted for the show then?
So it takes so with any kind of process, it took a few months. I kind of forgotten about it. I told, I kind of forgotten about it, and then I got the phone call to say, that there's stages, right? There's stages. You kind of go through to different stages, and people who have talked about their experience or whether they got on or not, they will say about the stages. It's the same with anything, like a second job interview and stuff. And I just didn't think anything. I didn't think at all that I would be going on it. I'm just a small-time girl from Kingswood. Nothing like, I'm not like, I've got like my handful of friends. I'm not like loads of, and yeah, I'm not a massive influencer. And again, I think that's what's important about the Traitors is everybody is just, well, I don't like the word normal, but just, people that you'd walk past in the street. They're not massive influencers with, that are spotlessly beautiful and perfect. It's just reality.
So on the first episode, you told Claudia Winkleman that you wanted to be a faithful. Why did you want to be a faithful rather than a traitor?
So I think all along applying, I was like, yeah, I can do it. I can be a traitor, and it's really. And you have to be able to do both, right? But as I got into that castle and you start to understand the dynamics, like you are on TV, naturally you're going to get filmed. You are meeting new people. I started to realize how difficult that would be. And I did think initially I wouldn't mind being a faithful going into the castle, develop that relationship, and then be a traitor. I think that was originally what I wanted to do. But it's only till you get there, you think, actually, that's the worst way, because then people get to know who you are, and then you change, which is the more harder thing. So, yeah, you're constantly evolving. How you go in with a plan is never necessarily how you end up, because you don't know the people that you're meeting.
How do you think you'd have done as a traitor looking back?
I think one of the things I like about the new season is it's female heavy. And I think that last year was, it was quite male heavy. So I don't know. I don't think whether that makes a difference. But I think if I was on a traitor this season, I think I'd be good. Last season, they were ruthless, weren't they? They were ruthless. Harry, Paul, ruthless. I mean, I look at poor Ash, and I think she did not stand a chance, They were straight away, that's it. And all the recruited ones were male, But I don't think it was meant like that. I just think that, but I think it's good to see some women in the turret this year.
Did you watch it all back then when it came out?
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that. I've probably seen it like 10 times, and every time I watch it, I see different things. So when you're in it and you're filming it and you're taking part in it, you don't. That's one part of it. So it's crazy, and then you watch it back after. Then you start to see everyone's interviews that you didn't see before. And we watched it all together, right? The first episode, we were invited to London. All the cast watched the first episode before it came out, just to kind of get adjusted to it. And I'm telling you now, the whole room lit up when we started to hear what Paul said in his interviews. It was like, hi. Like, all we saw was this really nice man that talked about his kids, and you saw. So when we're seeing this man that's cackling like a witch in a cauldron, oh, okay, scandal, absolute scandal.
So at that point, did you not know who the traitors were before you watched the first episode?
So it was revealed to us in our podcast. It was revealed to us, so we didn't know. We just didn't. I don't know. As a naive faithful, you think that people do what they need to do, but they almost feel heartfelt. I mean, he was rubbing his hands together and just seeing him. He would have pulled murdered every night if he could. Same with Harry, he's like absolutely loving it, and I think that was a shock because you just imagine that the traitors are really struggling if they couldn't murder.
What would you do through a day? Obviously, we only see an hour an episode, but what would a typical day be like?
So I mean, what you see is exactly how it is. It is so a majority of it is you see us eating, you see us doing the missions, you see us having breakfast, not in that order, but what you see is how it is. It's sad that because we are in the castle for so long, there's so much footage that they could use because the amount of conversations and stuff. So everything that you see, it's not like we go anywhere else. It's completely as you see it is how it is. And the one thing that I love about the show is it's completely organic. We don't if it's not on camera, it didn't happen, and that's what I love about it. So there's nothing that we, even if a really funny moment is in a different side of the room and that's not captured, we don't redo it. That's it, it's gone. And I think that's the great thing about the Traitors. So yeah, that's what we do. So we get up in the morning, we go to breakfast, obviously you're relieved, and then we have a chat about what we think. It is very intense, I'm not gonna lie. It is literally 12 hours a day thinking about murder, banishment, distrust. It's they do look after you, they really do, but you have to be, because after a certain amount of time of doing that series and filming everything, you do, by the end of it, you're emotionally exhausted. You really are, because there's no really downtime. But I would do it again in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
Like I said, it's one of the best programs I've seen on TV in years. You mentioned before how you started watching it on iPlayer. The first time I watched it, the first bit I saw, I was flicking through the telly, and the first bit was when you was going to somebody had been poisoned with a drink, which we knew were Diane, and you were walking towards the coffins, and you had to do the questions and stuff. Did you enjoy doing the challenges?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. That one in particular, the funeral one, was just it was so scary. It was so scary walking around. I mean, we walked around for what felt like an eternity, and it was really haunting. What you saw on that screen is exactly what we felt. We were terrified. I mean, there's choir singers, and Claudia with the horse and carriage. It was amazing. Did I like the missions? I did, not as much as the bigger ones of the group. Because it's like I was the one that was running behind, one of the one, the Harrys, the Dianes, they were on it. I remember the first mission, we had this little paddle boat, and on the boat, I was in the boat that just kept going round and round. And we wanted to do a jigsaw puzzle, and that's all I kept doing. And I remember I was like, right, I'm getting out of this boat. We're just going around in circles. And I got in the water, and I'm not even joking you, that first mission, I've never been that cold. I jumped out of the boat, and my whole body, I couldn't even speak. I was like, you're so cold. And I was just like, and then so I was like, I got to swim. And I kept swimming. And then I must have been swimming what felt like about 20 minutes. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I was just swimming against the tide. I was rubbish at the missions.
Some of them do look really hard work, though, some of their missions. What was your favourite one then? Was it the catapult one, that moment?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I think that was, I think a lot of people said after, well, that was your best moment that you've had in your life. Yeah, because that was, it wasn't necessarily about firing a catapult. It was about the fact that I'd reached that point, that episode, the fact that I do struggle with my hearing and my hearing aids, that I am a little bit neurodiverse, the fact that I reached the missions and I actually achieved something, and the joy that that brought to everybody in that moment, you know, when everyone was jumping up and down. And that was a good thing about missions. It takes you out of the intensity. I mean, only for a short amount of time, but it gets you out and doing different things. And then you think about that you have to, you know, go home and survive that round table, honestly.
It's like you can't switch off at any point or just show a different side of your personality or anything. You've got to. It's hard to like if for somebody going in now. I don't know how you'd approach it. I think you just got to be adaptable, haven't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to adapt to every situation, right? Because you hit the nail on the head just then. No matter what you do in that game, you will always be on the back foot, right? And that's it. If you're too quiet, you're hiding something. If you're too confident, then you're being too confident because you know the game. If you answer, you know, if you say that you're faithful, then you're professing your innocence too much. You will never ever win, and that's the thing. You know, of the game plan. I think my game plan going in there was to be exactly who I am, and I think if I could tell anybody to be in there, unless you're a traitor, obviously you're not going to say that being a traitor. But as a faithful, I know naturally I can get on with people, and I can. And that's not manipulative. That's just because I'm a massive heart and I care about people and I love having fun. So I knew that side of it would be really good. And I don't know whether you remember, but my name was not mentioned once. I was never mentioned around the round table. I was never mentioned by the traitors until that day that I got murdered when I called out Charlotte. Other than that, I didn't. And I think that's genuinely because I became a person that, you know, that almost that shoulder for people, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you mentioned the round table there. Does it, when you're sitting there, can you feel the pressure and everything like surrounding it?
Yeah, and you know, we were in there for hours, absolutely hours, and you know, you don't necessarily like there's the conversations all of the time that's going on. There's accusations that's flying, and I just, you know, you have to consider what way you want to go, and no one wants to be murdered because you don't get a chance to say goodbye. But banishment is savage. It's savage because you've then got everybody. You've lost all your coping mechanisms. You're not talking to any of your friends. You're completely immersed in this experience. These people that you become attached to become your coping mechanism. They become your family. All of a sudden, everyone around that table is now saying that you're a liar. That is next level hard, you know. That is so much pressure that you know, my girl Charlotte, she's my bestie. She smashed it every time. She knew how to drive that table, when to sit back. I did contribute, but I was in tears a lot of the time around that round table because you never say, unless you're a traitor, you can't never say you're 100% traitor. No matter what you say, you think I've got a strong suspicion, I could be wrong. And yeah, it's difficult. And I remember the one we had to revote, and I think it was between Brian. It might have been with Ash as well, but we had to revote.
I remember. I can't remember who it was though. But yeah, I remember.
By the time we got back, it was early hours. You know, it was stuck in that round table hours, and I think it gets so intense in there. You know, but it felt like hours. Obviously, we haven't got access to a stopwatch or anything or a mobile phone. So it felt like hours, and you know, yeah, savage.
You mentioned they don't have like a watch or a mobile phone. Are you completely shut out from the outside world then?
It's a completely immersive experience. Yeah, like I mean, it wouldn't be fair. We have to make sure that we play by the rules. So everything is once you go in there, that's it. You have no access to talk to people because. I mean, there's always ways that you can communicate between each other as well, you know, so they have to make sure that you don't, you know, communicate. So the rules are very firm in what you need to do. So yeah, we don't, when we go back up to our rooms, that's where we stay.
Is it hard? Was that hard for you then, like shutting out the outside world?
So hard. And you become aware of the coping mechanisms that you never thought that you had, right? And like the amount of times that something happens, or and you just want to ring somebody, like everyone's got somebody, or you just want to, I don't know, scroll or whatever it is and watch a podcast. You can't do that. You can't do that because your mind is completely, you're in an immersive experience. You can't just go, right, hang on a minute, pause that round table. I just need to watch Behind the Curtain podcast. It's, as much as that would help, it really would. Yeah. So that's where it is.
Well, you mentioned that the banishment's hard and the murder, like whichever way you go out, it's going to be hard. But with being murdered, did it hurt more that like it wasn't your fault? Like if you get voted out, you've usually done something to like bring up people's suspicions. But when you're murdered, you can't do anything about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is it is there's difficulties with both of them. At least with the banishment, you get to be able to stand there. Excuse me. You get to be able to stand there in front of Claudia and people and say, "Look, I've had the best experience," or whatever. I'm a faithful or a traitor, and you have that little bit. When you're murdered, that's it. You just don't turn up for breakfast, which is savage. But yeah, the only way that I could do it was every day that I was saved from murder was an absolute blessing. And I think that so whatever it is, I never expected to get to episode 9. That's incredible. But yeah, the murder, it is hard, and I did get a bit emotional in when they told me, because when I read the letter. Yeah, it's just that letter as well, seeing it, and when I walked in and I saw that I was like. Just talk with it. So I think the reason why I was murdered was many reasons, but the round table before, I'd always had the suspicion that I thought that Charlotte was a traitor, and we've sorted it out. But yeah, I was adamant, and I think it got to that table. I was like, right, I just got to say how it is. Even though you're my bestie, I think you're a traitor. And she was faithful.
That's another thing, though, as well. Like, you can't go into the round table either too quiet or too loud, because then that causes suspicion as well.
And you can't go with the herd mentality all the time,
Yeah.
It does get to a point where you have to make your own decisions, otherwise you're just a rubbish faithful. You might as well not be there, right? So as much as you have to get the kind of the group together with a decision where you can take on somebody that you believe is a traitor, like we did with Paul and Ash, and you do have to come together. But there are some times where you have to go, like Brian. I knew I was really good at finding the faithful. I knew that Brian was a faithful. I knew that Johnny was a faithful. I knew that Meg was a faithful. And again, I didn't know it, but you just feel it in your gut. So I'm not going to vote for Brian. So I went for somebody else. And I think that's when you have to go with the group, but you also have to keep in mind, who do you honestly in your heart think is a traitor?
Yeah, well, we mentioned you got murdered. After that, was there not relief? Obviously, you want to win the show, but that you were back and you could do what you wanted and like back to normal life, really.
Yeah, it was. So I'm an area manager. I work in mental health. I work with social workers and work with the police and a lot. And yeah, I was in many meetings, and right at the end of the meeting, someone would go, "I've got to ask, were you?" Recognize you, and I'd be at or whatever, stood in Bristol, and just walk past you. As this is the difficulty, right? Some people, I don't know about you, would you approach somebody that you thought that you recognised to ask yourself, Vicky?
Not if I 100% that I knew the war.
Yeah, so not everybody is comfortable with doing that. So some people just do the funniest of things. People just stare and laugh. People walk past me in the street and go, "Hi, Charlie," and just walk on. So I'm like, person that just called me, but that's obviously they'd only know my name from being on the TV. I've had kids running up to me in Asda and they're like, but some of their reactions are really funny, because the ones that I'm of the, like, come and say hello or don't say anything, because you know that I know that that I'm in the Traitors, but most of the time you're just stood there laughing at me, which is uncomfortable. I have got it wrong a few times. I tell you, I had somebody that was staring at me and they were smiling. Um, we were in this theater, and we were watching this comedian. This man's come running down the stairs, and I'm like, he's heading towards me. He's going, wait, wait, and I was like, right, he knows, right? He knows where I'm from. I'm been recognised, so I was like, he was like, I've got to ask, and I went, Traitors, and he went, Traitors, what's that? No, my missus really likes your top. I've never been so embarrassed.
Well, Wilfred from series 1, he gets like messages still from people who watch it saying like abusing him. Really, it's crazy, isn't it? How invested people are in it.
Absolutely, I know that Molly got a lot of stick after the final, um, and I think that it's really tricky, right? Because it's like a pantomime, and we have to remember that that's what it is. And when you look at a pantomime, you're not going to, send death threats to the person body in a pantomime. That's all it is. And I know that Molly got a bit of stick. Actually, she's had a lot of love, so it's all good. But people, yeah, but you can't begrudge people of that. There's two sides of it that can really help people in a way that it brings you out of yourself to talk about it, and also it brings like something that can be in people where it's you think that we're superheroes. We're not.
We mentioned that you were a faithful, obviously, and I'm sure you'll have wanted the faithfuls to win. But were you happy for Harry and how he played the game?
Absolutely not. Was I happy that yeah, he played the game well? Of course he did. But was I happy that he won? No. Was Molly amazing? She's a lovely girl. She's a Bristolian. She I really wanted her to win. So we did. And I'm team faithful as well. I like Harry. I think he played a really good game. I think he really did. But no, rooting for my Molly.
What was it like when you found out that Ross was Diane's son?
How did I not see that? How did I not see it? Like, it's so blatantly obvious. You couldn't make it. I mean, yeah. Diane she said to me before, she was like, I've got kids that are in TV. And I thought, oh, in TV. Maybe she's going to tell me after the show, after we go, that her kids are, I don't know, famous actors, which one of them is. But I didn't actually think about that enough. My kid is on TV, like each I just look back, I think, what on earth was I doing? What on earth was I doing? Just, I don't know. You just lose yourself. It's madness.
You mentioned you're really good friends with Charlotte. Have you kept in touch with most of the cast?
Yes. So I went to see Diane went up to see her in Blackpool. I went to see Charlotte most weekends. We did have a Traitors reunion where we kind of this big Airbnb almost castle-like building. And there was a hot tub and we just had a great time. We took some videos on Instagram, but it was really good to kind of all be together without having to do something. And we plan to do that every year. So we try and post, and for the fans as well. I just think it's really cool to see us all, in a natural environment. And why not? We've bonded. You're always going to bond.
Yeah, it's like you've got a special experience there that not many people are going to experience, haven't you?
That's right. So would you do it? Would you go on?
I would do it, but I just think, I don't know how I'd cope. I just don't know, like, if you're a faithful, I don't know. I don't know if I'd rather be a faithful or a traitor. What would you rather be if you could go back?
I don't know. I can't necessarily say what I would love to be. I mean, I wouldn't like to see the different side of it, obviously. So I know what it's like to be a faithful. So I think traitor would be fun. But that's not to say that, I'd be happy either way. So if we go to All Stars and you release this footage, but it would be nice to see what it looks like from the turret.
Do you think it'd be good if there was an All Stars one?
I'm there. I know. So I spoke to a lot of people. I've spoke to Wilf, really good friends with his missus. Kieran, speak to Kieran as well. So I think it'd be really cool to get all the series together. Going into this season as well. There's some really good characters in this season, really good characters, and I think, actually the guys who got off the train are really cool. So I do hope that they come back. But yeah, also, it depends. You'd have to have a couple from each series, because there's 22 people that needs to be cast, So we'd have to wait a few more. But yeah, I'd be there.
I just remembered then actually, when you got murdered, you just missed out on the shield the day before, didn't you? Or that day? Does that hurt looking back?
And that's another reason why I think that potentially I was up there as well, because as you remember, there was arrows and we had to shoot the arrows, right, on the people's names. Guess whose name I got? Harry's.
Oh, was it you that got Harry?
I was the one that got Harry. So I think that he's great at all the challenges. So wherever he had a little bit of a thing, because he was the one that brought my name up. But there's so many, you never know. You never know unless you're in the head of Harry what actually was happening. It could be a contribution to all of it. But yeah, it was between me and Molly, and that was a really upsetting time for me. Actually, I think you're always going to have moments where you struggle more than others, and I think that in the time in the church where we did that and I missed out on the shield was probably the saddest I've been in the whole time. I was gutted, and actually, I never went for any shields before that. I always felt guilty about doing that. It's a controversial thing, right? Going for the shield, because you almost have to well, don't worry about the group, I'm going to run for myself. So I thought that would be a really cool time to get the shield, but it wasn't to be, and I was murdered the next day.
You mentioned if you were giving advice to people going in, you'd say be yourself. Have you got any other tips or advice for people?
Yeah, I mean, don't put on an accent unless you're from that place. I mean, I don't know. Steve from the series, any fair play to her, but why would you put yourself through it, right?
It's hard to keep up with all of it.
Yeah, so what advice would I give? Have fun. That's the main thing. Have fun. But even in the moments that you're not really noticing, there's always going to be signs. There's always going to be signs everywhere. And I would say relax and enjoy it, really, because I think that, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky because the traitors are ever evolving. So you get one out and there's another one recruited. So I think with that, do what you can, but also enjoy it while you're doing it.
Yeah, it's the thing about being adaptable as well, because, like you say, the curveballs they throw at you like in season 1 when they stood in a line and they took 3 out or 2 out. Were you all thinking of the line, oh, one of us is going to go if we at the end?
Yeah. So I was right next to. I was next to Andrew, which was the second most likely to win. Sure, this is something that I'm going to say. Go for it. Give it whatever you are. Give it as much as you can. But I would say that the main point would be relationships. Don't underestimate the power of a relationship. Harry got to the final because everybody trusted him. Everybody loved Harry. And I think I said that is it. It's building those relationships where, because I mean, it's a numbers game, isn't it, really? Around that round table. So if you can work out, right, say half of that round table is going for one person, half is going to the other. If you can influence certain people, then you're going to be less likely to go. If you're a traitor or whatever that is, it is relationships. So be genuine, but also work hard at these relationships.
Say with Harry though, you mentioned he was like friendly with everybody, but what was it about him that you trusted?
Harry has a real way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the room, and I think he had that charm about him. But he also stuck himself out on the line in the missions as well. So, like I said earlier, I was one that struggled a little bit with my fitness, and Johnny with his prosthetic leg, even though he didn't seem like he struggled, Harry would be always the person would be lifting you up if you fell down. He'd always be that person that that you could always rely on. That he'd always, if you felt like you didn't do very well, he was the one that was like, "Don't worry, I've got you." So the next mission is me and you. His way of doing that, and I think when you're in a situation where you're so overwhelmed by everything and you've got somebody there to hold your hand and to be there and to kind of ride or die, you've got you, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm sure you'll be watching the new episode tonight.
Oh yeah, and we'll be going live after, absolutely. So please join. But yeah, I will be watching the episode. I can't wait. And you?
Yeah, I'll be watching it. Is it 2 a night that they do on iPlayer? This is the first one I've watched, like, when they're out at the time. Like, I've watched them on iPlayer when they're all out, the past two.
So I know last season they put 3 out at a time on the first week, but then they do it live every day. So I don't think that there's going to be out. There's not going to do 3. I think it's going to be just live.
All right, yeah, and I'll watch your Instagram live after the episode and see what you're saying.
And I will definitely say hello to you. Okay, amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for that. It's been great to speak to you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the series.
Thank you. Take care. Lovely. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.